Well, joining me now is, of course, Yusuf Erim, TRT World's own Turkey analyst, and Azzam Tamimi. He is an author and the former head of the Institute of Islamic Political Thought. Thanks both so much for joining us. Yusuf, let me pick up with you quickly, because you and I spoke a lot over the last year about this drip of information that Turkey was releasing to the public. It seemed very politically and diplomatically savvy, but still, no one has been held accountable for this murder. So what more can Turkey do?
Well, Turkey has to keep pressing on, continue to be transparent, continue to provide support to the United Nations in their investigation. But what more can Turkey do? Well, they've done their share of what they can do. The realm of evidence that they can collect, the amount of pressure they can put on Saudi Arabia, they've already done it.
And the United Nations isn't doing anything. Agnes Kalamard said it herself.
Well, there's only a certain amount of mandate that the United Nations has. This is an unprecedented murder. This is an unprecedented event with unprecedented conditions right now. So what will happen with the Jamal Khashoggi investigation and how the world will react to holding MBS responsible, Saud al-Qahtani responsible, and the other leaders, whether it be Maher Mutreb and everyone in Saudi Arabia, will set the precedent for this in the future. And it's very important because we're not seeing any type of tangible punishment. And this is where the United Nations, the United States needs to step in. The United States has expressed a great amount of support, most namely the President, Donald Trump, has expressed a lot of support for Mohammed bin Salman. He's been a big supporter and helped shield him from the CIA's investigation and maybe more information coming from the United States. Any type of U.S. sanctions would have been an important tangible punishment. Any type of U.S. pressure, blocking arms sales. These would have all helped Turkey and all strengthened the hand of the United Nations in dealing with Saudi Arabia. But we didn't see this type of step coming from America. So Turkey's hands are tied at the amount of punishment it can enforce here, because in the end, all the perpetrators are in Saudi Arabia. One of the perpetrators, supposed alleged perpetrators, is the Crown Prince. What can you do to a man that is a world leader and that is that powerful at the head of one of the biggest oil-producing countries in the world? Exactly.
So what does your instinct tell you? Will Mohammed bin Salman, who has claimed responsibility for this murder, will he ever see any sort of real penalty?
Well, when we say claimed responsibility, that was quite a deflection. That wasn't a claim of responsibility. He deflected off the assassination team and claimed responsibility for it being on his watch. At least the claim showed that the state was somewhat responsible, so that was a small step. But we'll never see a true claim of responsibility from Mohammed bin Salman unless there's a hard concrete evidence directly linking him to it. Now, what will happen to Mohammed bin Salman? Will he ever see a day in court? I highly doubt it. He'll most likely be coronated very soon. His father's in bad health. He'll probably have a very long reign without facing any type of real repercussions, and I don't think we'll see any change in his behavior. This public relations damage that he took on from Khashoggi was a small lesson that he learned, but basically the only thing he learned is don't get caught, and that's really it. And we're going to continue to see this type of repression and oppression of dissidents, whether it be domestically inside Saudi Arabia or Saudi and Arab dissidents outside of Saudi Arabia.
Azzam, do you see this the same way? I mean, effectively what Yusuf is saying is that Saudi will essentially get away with this murder.
That's how it seems for the time being, but of course it depends on what happens in America. Now, the real battle will be in Washington. And this is to do with Trump and his administration providing Mohammed bin Salman with shelter, with protection. Trump will not be there forever. Even if he wins the next elections in America, he will be gone one day. And I think there are circles in America, including the media, especially the Washington Post, who would want to see justice served and also really have a go at those who not only perpetrated the crime, but also provided them with safe haven.
Right. You know, I want to ask you kind of a wider question here, and about how this murder has actually shaken the Arab and Muslim world in particular. no Muslim can avoid Saudi Arabia. It is home to Mecca, and it is an extremely influential player in the region, whether we like it or not. So what is this murder, this brazen act done to the region?
Well, it's now a year since Jamal was murdered. A year ago, like yesterday, we were together in London just before he took the night flight coming here to London, to Istanbul. He was expressing concern about what might happen to his country because of its involvement in Yemen, because of the incarceration, the imprisonment of scholars, of thinkers, of activist women, because of its policies in general. And now we can see that a year on, his murder has drawn people's attention within the Arab world to the real nature of this monarchy. It has exposed the people who are decision makers inside Saudi Arabia like never before. And I think since the murder until today, Saudi Arabia has been doing very badly, has been sinking more and more every day in the quagmire that Mohammed bin Salman has pulled it into. And I have no doubt that recent dynamics in the Arab world, which we saw in Algeria, in Sudan, and lately in Egypt, were at least partly motivated by the fact that the counter-revolution or the counter-revolutionaries led by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates continue, so long as they are in their thrones, continue to cause havoc in the region, continue to cause pain and misery to the Arabs and to the Muslims. And Jamal's murder was part of this. It's a continuous reminder.
And it's frightening to think how it so insidiously got more and more kind of dangerous under Mohammed bin Salman. I heard one Saudi say that we were never a democracy, but suddenly we felt like this became a police state. You said you were with Jamal Khashoggi in just the days before his life was taken. He really didn't understand entirely, I mean, how much danger he was in, and that Saudi had become this kind of place.
No, he knew if he went back to Saudi Arabia, his life was going to be in danger.
Okay.
No doubt about this. And I spoke with him several times since he's decided to stay in exile, that he was determined not to return, because some of his friends who contributed so positively to the economy in Saudi Arabia were already in prison. But he, and I'm really sad to say this, he underestimated the threat the Saudi regime posed to someone like him abroad. I said to him, on that Monday when we were together, on the 1st of October, I said to him, how are you going to go to the consulate? How can you trust these people? And he said, I was there on a Friday. Yes, they were surprised to see me, but, you know, they are my countrymen, they were helpful, they appreciate what I do, and they promised to help get him that piece of paper he was after. I was more worried about his going to the consulate than he was.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Saudi under Mohammed bin Salman did, you know, he had dreams, still does, obviously, of making Saudi the key
more in that quagmire, leaving now Saudi Arabia and Yemen alone after deciding to split the country into two. So you see, Mohammed bin Salman is motivated by his aspiration to become king, And and he was made to believe, again by Mohammed bin Zayed, that Trump was the way, and that winning the heart of Trump was through Tel Aviv or through Jerusalem, as some people would say it.
You know, it's amazing because, of course, we know about the Calamard report from the United Nations, and that she says, you know, Saudi is actually responsible for a state-sponsored, premeditated murder. But we also had a report from the CIA that was leaked after Trump and the State Department really tried to quash it and say that it wasn't actual proof of any sort that Mohammed bin Salman was responsible. How I feel as an observer that CIA report was so key, and it was allowed to kind of fall by the wayside because the State Department and, of course, President Trump were allowed to reinterpret it. Now, how does that actually happen in what's supposed to be, you know, a democracy like the United States? Why wasn't the CIA allowed to go further and actually publish their findings and say, this man is responsible, we know it, this is the evidence we have?
Well, the crisis in the United States of America can be summed up in the fact that Trump is using democracy in order to undo democracy, undo the democratic institutions of the United States of America. Now, the war going on behind the scene in America is between the White House, or this Trump administration on the one hand, and the rest of the state in the United States of America. And the democracy is actually dying at the moment, not only in America, but in the entire West, where we see these right-wing groups using the ballot box in order to come to power and then undo all the democratic achievements that were accomplished over the years.
Okay. Azzam Tamimi, I'll let you have the last word. And Yusuf, of course, thanks for joining us again.